Borthakur IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আর অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, this is Funny. Welcome to Borthakur IAS Academy. This is our daily Hindu analysis class for 4th September 2021. Let us begin with the first article without any further delay. In a bit of news that is related to Afghanistan, the first article for today is Mullah Baradar set to head Taliban government in Afghanistan. Now this individual is the co-founder of Taliban. He leads the political side of Taliban establishment or organization. He has been leading Taliban's political office in Doha, right? Now it seems that he would be the new head of the new Afghan government that Taliban is forming in Afghanistan. Now remember, this is after the fall of Kabul. Subsequently, there has been some time. Now they have finally decided that they are going to set up a government in Afghanistan. Now that government will be headed by the co-founder of Taliban, right? The first thing that almost all the countries including India have been saying is, see, this is initial stages. Let us wait and see how inclusive of a government will Taliban establish. We don't have any details, we don't know who is in the government, but what we have right now is, right, the co-founder of Taliban is going to be leading the Taliban-led Afghan government. So this is official, it's kind of taking shape, right? Most of the countries including India, primarily India, has adopted this wait and see approach to Taliban. The countries that were very keen since the beginning to engage with Taliban were Pakistan, China, and subsequently Russia, and they formed the Trioka grouping also, right? The primary thing is, most of the Western countries have said that they are going to continue their humanitarian aid. We are going, again, that has to be seen how it plays out. Since August of 15th of this year, the crisis in Afghanistan has accelerated to a significant speed, and we saw the outcome of that by the overthrowing of the government in Afghanistan by Taliban. So it is interesting to see we are discussing Taliban as an government. So we are talking about the collapsing economy of Afghanistan. We are talking about who will lead the government in Afghanistan. But nonetheless, we have the resolution that was passed under the leadership of India. We discussed that extensively in earlier classes. So this is again just an update as to what is happening in Afghanistan, and this would be a precursor as to how they would form the government and how India may have to approach Taliban in Afghanistan in future. So moving on to the next article. Footprints of 3 dinosaur species found in Thar Desert. Now in Thar Desert, that is in Rajasthan, footprints were discovered of 3 different species of dinosaurs, right? This establishes that the presence of giant reptiles, that is dinosaurs, were indeed present in western part of our country, particularly in the western part of that state, which is Jaisalmer district in Rajasthan. This is where they found the footprints. See, it is assumed that, or it is known that this part of India was the seashore to the Tethys Ocean, which was present during the Mesozoic era. So these footprints were found at a place where in the past there existed a seashore of the Tethys Ocean in the Mesozoic era, and this is where they found footprints of 3 different species of dinosaurs, right? These footprints were made in sediment, or they think it's the silt of the seashore, which later became permanent stone, not completely stone but stone like. And this is a significant discovery because, as I said, it establishes the fact that there was once presence of giant reptiles in western part of the state, which was though alluded but could not be proved. But with this evidence, they can conclusively say that there were reptiles, meaning there were dinosaurs at that in this part of or the western part of the state. So the interesting thing is, a team of paleontologists, people who study dinosaur fossils are called paleontologists. They made this discovery recently, and it is assumed that these footprints were at least 200 million years old, and they were found near Jaisalmer's Tayat village, right? This is Jaisalmer Tayat village in Rajasthan state. So just to be clarified, if something regards to prelims comes up, you know where it is. Now here is the interesting part about this discovery. The dinosaur species, right, of the three footprints of three different species that they found are most probably carnivorous, because these species are considered to be theropod type, meaning they have hollow bones and their feet is with 3 digits, meaning you understand 3 digits is like 3 fingers, right? They all belong to early Jurassic period and they were carnivorous, right? So this is the interesting finding out of this discovery. Again, these discoveries were made in Rajasthan, which has been particularly in the districts of Jaisalmer and surrounding districts. There has been recently a case of increased discoveries in regards to fossils of dinosaurs, right? It is assumed that this region holds more secrets, more fossils of dinosaurs. There are a lot to be explored, and that is what it is being done there. Now moving on to the next article. Experts flag diversion of fresh water from Brahmani river. So Brahmani river is in Odisha. Brahmani river forms one of the delta areas where the Sundarbans is based, right? The Sundarbans is present. It forms the 3 delta areas where we find the Sundarbans mangrove forest. So it seems that a group of environmentalists are raising concerns over massive diversion of fresh water from Brahmani river basin. Now where are they transferring this water to? They are transferring this water to the Talchar Angul coal mines and steel and power plants areas. So the Talchar region is known for its coal deposits. There is a high amount of activity that goes on there. It is a highly industrialized zone which requires a lot of water resources, and it seems that to fulfill that needs or to fulfill that industry's needs, water is being diverted from this river, which is fresh water, to fulfill those industrial needs. Now why are they raising concern over here, right? The problem is that with the massive diversion of the water, fresh water, this act could put the Sundarbans mangrove ecosystem into jeopardy, right? We know that Sundarbans is famous for its mangrove vegetation and the ecosystem that comes with it. It is a cultural identity and an environmental identity of the state of Odisha. And this river feeds the Borthakur wetland area, national park to be very specific, right? So to clarify, the Borthakur National Park is located in Kendrapada district of Odisha. It resides in the delta of rivers Brahmani, Baitarni and Dhamara. These are the 3 river deltas that encompass the national park. Now Brahmani river, from individualistic point of view, Brahmani river is the second major river in Odisha. It emerges from 2 rivers. When 2 rivers combined, those 2 rivers are South Koel and Sank rivers. This happens at Vedavyasa. The junction of these 2 rivers is at Vedavyasa in Rourkela, that is again in Odisha. Now when these 2 rivers join together, they form the Brahmani river. Now as I said, there in order to feed the industrial needs of the Talchar region, the water is being diverted from this river to those areas. Now, what was the argument made there? The argument is that it is going to put the national park and the ecosystem, the Sundarban ecosystem, mangrove ecosystem to be specific, under threat, right? This area, that national park, is a notified Ramsar wetland area which is spread around 200 square kilometers or so. But the interesting part is it is home to not only 60 to 70, almost 62 mangrove species, but also home to or home for 1600 saltwater crocodiles. Right? These are generally mud flats where these saltwater crocodiles make their nesting. Recently there was a news in this magazine called Down to Earth magazine where they discovered 2500 nesting areas for the saltwater crocodiles. Again, all that ecosystem would be under threat if sufficient water is not fed into that ecosystem. As we know, mangroves grow in brackish water. So in order for that growth to facilitate, there has to be proportionate fresh water flow into that ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, in this wetland, Ramsar wetland, the Bhitarkanika National Park area, that proportion of fresh water is supplied by the Brahmani river basin. So this, along with other river, keep the salinity level in this region on a equilibrium basis, right? It keeps the right amount of salinity in the water, providing optimal condition for this saltwater crocodiles and other animals to survive, and also facilitate the growth of mangrove forest in that region, right? The Talchar and Angul coal mines are very well known. They are the huge suppliers of coal for India. Not only that, there are subsequently steel plants and power plants in that region, right? It is a steel and power hub which draws enormous amounts of water, particularly fresh water, and it is drawn from Brahmani river. Now, as a result of it, this act of drawing enormous quantities of water to feed those industries has in effect disturbed the natural flow of this fresh water into this ecosystem. So what happens when the natural amount of fresh water is denied to an ecosystem, to this ecosystem? The salinity level, right? The saline level in the water goes up. So naturally what happens? The conditions become unoptimal, and these animals which depend on that salinity levels, that right conditions, they move upstream. So what will happen if they move upstream? They move out of the notified Ramsar wetland and they move out of the national park territories, automatically increasing the human-animal conflict. Again, if the salinity of the water goes up, the mangrove ecosystem gets destroyed. Along with it, any other dependent ecosystem in that region is also destroyed. So that is a big worry here. That is why the environmentalists are making their case there. So again, this is Brahmani river in Odisha, where the Bhitarkanika National Park is situated at, which is a notified Ramsar wetland, which is home to 62 mangrove species and also almost 1600 saltwater crocodiles. So now let us discuss our environmental aspect of it. So what is the situation here? So this region is an important ecosystem zone because it has mangrove forest. It has a great deal of mangrove forest coverage. In India, it is approximately estimated that the mangrove coverage is anywhere between 4000 to 4500 square kilometers, right? Most of it or much of it is in this region. Mangrove ecosystem or mangrove forest provide a great deal of protection to the coastline, right? We know that Odisha coastline is prone to high levels of storm activity. Because of that, we see the coastline being washed out because of these surges, right? Mangroves give protection to the coastline. They minimize disasters due to cyclones and tsunamis. There have been multiple studies, not only that they protect coastlines, they reduce the damages due to cyclones and tsunamis, but they also store more carbon dioxide than any other forest in the world, right? These are the kind of intermediate vegetation that lies between land and sea, right? Mangroves act as shock absorbers, right? They reduce the high tides and the waves, and they help prevent soil erosion. And at the end of the day, they do provide a great deal of livelihood opportunities to the coastal communities. There are a lot of coastal communities that are dependent on mangroves. So that is why we need to protect our mangroves. In a place like Odisha, where you see constant onslaught from the sea, you need these kinds of natural barriers, right? It is much cheaper to protect what we have, and it is much cheaper to develop new mangrove forests than construct huge infrastructure to protect our coastal cities and coastal communities. So that is why this becomes significant. That is why we discuss we discuss the need to protect our coastal ecosystems, particularly the mangrove forest and the surrounding ecosystem that is dependent on the mangrove forest. Now moving on to the next article, India US sign project agreement on air launched UAV. UAV stands for unmanned aerial vehicle, right? Now what is air launched UAV? Air launched unmanned aerial vehicle is nothing but, generally the UAVs are land based vehicles, meaning they take off from land or they are launched from land depending on the size of the UAV itself. So this air launched UAV means this can be launched from the air. So it would be attached to an aircraft or a helicopter or whatever aviation device, and this, after reaching a certain altitude, they would drop that UAV and then it would continue on its own propulsion or it would glide to its destination. That is air launched. The launch happens in the air from another aircraft, however the system is, but it happens in the air compared to the conventional UAVs which either take off or launched from surface. So that is what air launched unmanned aerial vehicles are. So what are we talking about here? So both United States and India signed a project agreement, PA, to develop combinedly a new aerial launched unmanned vehicles. That is the project agreement. So these project agreements come from a scheme that we launched with the Americans in the past. So the initiative that we launched with the Americans was the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, right? The reason that we launched this Defense Technology and Trade Initiative was we were importing a lot of technology, lot of machinery, weapon systems from American companies, right? Most of them were negotiated with the American government. That is how we were purchasing these weapon systems from America. So the idea or the intent behind this development of the launch of this TTI initiative was we wanted to transform that relationship, a seller and a buyer relationship, into a co-producing or co-development relationship, right? We wanted to shift that from a co-development relation. So instead of buying weapon systems from America, we introduced this initiative so that we not only buy it from them, but we also develop new technologies in tandem with them by way of mutual cooperation. right? We wanted to transform that buyer-seller relationship that we had, and we wanted to transform it into a co-development, and subsequently, if the product is successful, if the tests are successful, we would bring that into production, and that would lead to a point in time where India and America will not only co-develop but also produce advanced weapon systems. But the problem was that dream had remained as a pipe dream till now. For the last 7 years or so, we were trying to engage on several other projects through the DTI Initiative, right? Defense Technology and Trade Initiative. But none of those things could come to fruition. Now this project agreement, which allows for both India and US to develop an aerial launched unmanned aerial vehicle, this would be the first successful such successful project under the DTI Initiative. Again, what happens in this agreement or in this mechanism is transfer of technology takes place, because half of the funding is being done from the Indian side, half of the funding is coming from the American side for the development of this system. So there would be a greater scope for cooperation and cohesion between technologies, where they'll talk about the technologies that they have and we'll bring in our expertise. Then there would be share of technology, share of ideas, and at the end of the day we'll have a better weapon system that was developed by both of those countries. So again, we are developing an aerial launched unmanned aerial vehicle system with America through the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, which did not take off till now, but this is the first instance where it has actually translated into something meaningful. Again, this is just a project agreement. This is the initial stages. We have to see how this unfolds. So that is the ALUAV that we are talking about in this article. Now coming to the final article for the day, Taliban battle for final holdout province. So we have been discussing the Panjshir Valley for last few classes. So Taliban, it seems, have launched a complete offensive against Panjshir Valley, where the Northern Alliance 2.0 is taking shape under the leadership of Amrullah Saleh, who has been the Vice President of Afghanistan and the current acting President of Afghanistan after Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani fled from Afghanistan. A lot of Afghanistan in that sentence, but I hope you understood that. Now again, this is just to bring you to your notice. We have already covered in detail what is Panjshir Valley, what is the history of Northern Alliance. These are the anti-Taliban fighters that have been pushing against the advances of Taliban in that region. Right, this is where Taliban has yet to gain control of, but it seems that the Taliban has launched new offensives by bringing in more men, more equipment. Most probably most of the equipment is the American equipment that was left behind, and they are using that advanced weaponry to crush the opposition for Taliban in Panjshir Valley. Now again, this is an autonomous region that was under the control of Masood, son of ex-Northern Alliance leader, but nonetheless this is the last bit of resistance that is still fighting in Afghanistan against the rising Taliban. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.
Borthakur IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
Borthakur IAS Academy